All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're tackling something that, let's be honest, pretty much every single one of us wrestles with every day. We're talking about how to rescue our focus from the absolute exhaustion of the modern digital world. I mean, if you've ever found yourself just staring blankly at a screen, endlessly swiping, and suddenly realizing you lost an hour of your life but can't remember a single thing you looked at, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to break down the anti-brain rot protocol. It's a really structured, science-backed approach, straight from our source material, designed to help you actually reclaim your attention span. So why does ordinary life suddenly feel so boring? It's kind of a harsh question, I know, but I really want you to think about it for a second. Does reading a book, or say just sitting quietly on a park bench, suddenly feel agonizingly slow, like you're just itching to do something else? You are definitely not alone. I want to hook you with this right away because it's so important to realize that your struggle with focus is a shared, deeply neurological experience. It is absolutely not a moral feeling. The reason ordinary life feels so dull is basically because our reward sensitivity has been totally hijacked. We're used to getting this massive spike of stimulation literally every 3 seconds. So when you take that away, the quiet pace of the real world just feels incredibly understimulating.
And that brings us perfectly to Chapter 1, the brain rot epidemic.
Right at the core of this whole epidemic is this concept of brain rot. It's defined as the negative cognitive effects that come from constant overstimulation. And look, the very first step in fixing this problem is shifting the blame away from your own perceived lack of willpower and putting it on the realities of our modern digital environment. We are essentially running ancient hardware, our human brains, in this totally unprecedented, hyper-stimulating digital ecosystem. An ecosystem meticulously designed by thousands of engineers to capture and keep your attention. So that heavy, foggy feeling of mental exhaustion you get, that isn't because you've been thinking too hard. It's a direct byproduct of getting way too much sensory input, way too fast, for way too long. Your brain is just plain exhausted from constantly processing all these new totally unrelated microbursts of information. Moving on to Chapter 2, the science of distraction. Let's look under the hood a bit at short-form content versus sustained focus. Think of these as two completely different cognitive gears. Short-form media is rapid fire, right? It's built to give you a punchline, a visual shock, or a quick tip in under 60 seconds. It's immediate, zero-effort stimulation. Sustained focus, on the other hand, is a much slower, more deliberate pace. It requires this phase of what we call desirable difficulty, where you actually have to put in some effort before you get the psychological reward. And right now, well, our brains are getting entirely too much practice in that first rapid-fire gear, and the gears needed for sustained focus are just getting super rusty. This constant shifting back and forth creates a really vicious distraction training cycle. It starts with consuming short-form content, which naturally leads to the habit of checking your phone every few minutes. I mean, have you ever closed an app on your phone only to immediately open it again without even thinking? Honestly, we've all been there. That is micro-frequent phone checking. And what you're doing here, what we are all doing, is literally training the brain to expect constant distraction. You're actively teaching your neural pathways that a new, shiny piece of information is always just a few seconds away, and that completely obliterates your ability to just sit with a single thought. So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that checking your phone every few minutes trains the brain for distraction. I really love this quote from our source material because it completely reframes the problem. We usually think of scrolling as just wasting time or doing nothing, right? But neuroplasticity tells us that our brains are always learning. You aren't doing nothing. You are actively engaging in highly effective, repetitive training. You are literally putting in the reps to become a highly distracted person. But hey, here is the good news. If the brain can be trained for distraction, it can absolutely be retrained for focus. Let's get into Chapter 3, the 30-day restoration protocol. 30 days. Why exactly 30 days? Well, because unbreakable consistency requires time. You simply cannot undo years of digital overstimulation in a single weekend. 30 days is the time frame you actually need to effectively break that cycle of constant dopamine hits and allow your cognitive habits to reset. It's the time required to survive that tricky, invisible progress stage, where you're putting in the work day after day before you really feel the external results of having a calmer, sharper mind. The primary goal here is really straightforward. Reverse the effects of constant overstimulation. And I want to be incredibly clear about this. This protocol is not a punishment, okay? You aren't being sent off to a digital monastery to live a life of complete boredom. The goal is simply to perform a detox that restores your reward sensitivity. We're just trying to bring your baseline down a bit so that ordinary, deeply fulfilling tasks like having a long conversation or doing some deep, meaningful work actually start to feel rewarding again. Which brings us to Chapter 4, Rebuilding with Slow Stimulation. Let's look at the exact actionable steps you can start taking today. We can break the challenge down into a super simple daily practice. Step 1, put the phone away. And actually, scratch that. I don't just mean face down on your desk. I mean put it in another room entirely. When it comes to the science of habit building, environment always beats willpower. Don't fight the urge, just remove the trigger. Step 2, choose a single, slow-paced activity. And Step 3, commit to a 20 to 30-minute session. That's really it. One activity, absolutely no digital input for up to half an hour. Think of this timeline as a daily attention span workout. At minute 0, you begin. Around the 10-minute mark, things are going to get hard. This is exactly where your brain, which is super used to its distraction training, will basically start screaming at you to check your phone. Resisting that specific urge right there, that is where the cognitive muscle is actually built. At 20 minutes, boom, you've hit the minimum daily goal of the protocol. And if you push through and make it to 30 minutes, your daily attention rebuilding is totally complete. Just half an hour a day to take back control of your mind. So, what should you actually do during those 30 minutes? The source material gives us some highly effective, totally practical, slow activities. Things like reading a physical book or going for a walk without a podcast or music playing in your ears. These activities are absolutely perfect because they require single tasking. They don't flood your system with rapid sensory changes. Instead, they gently force your brain to slow down its processing speed and engage deeply with one continuous stream of thought or observation. When we compare the distracted brain to the restored brain, the contrast is practically night and day. The distracted brain we started with was in this constant state of chaotic overstimulation, finding ordinary life totally boring, always seeking the next micro hit of dopamine, and heavily suffering from that brain rot. But the restored brain, the one this 30-day challenge aims to rebuild, that brain possesses a quiet, incredibly capable attention span. It has the stamina to engage in deep work, the patience to enjoy slow media, and the clarity to actually, finally, be present in the moment.
So, what 30 minutes of slow stimulation are you going to choose today? Remember, genuine confidence and laser focus aren't just magic treats you're born with. They are built through evidence-based action. You now have the actual mechanics to break the distraction cycle, so go put that phone in another room. Because at the end of the day, if you don't choose where to direct your attention, well, the algorithms will gladly continue choosing for you.